insane. And if I'm right, it's worse than if I'm wrong.
In 1968, Roman Polanski gave birth to the seminal horror film Rosemary's Baby. Based on a novel of the same name by the author Ira Levin, it is at its heart a story of paranoia, cults, and ultimately insidious betrayal.
I can't stay too long here. They'll be coming looking for me. Dr. Hill, there's a plot.
Rosemary Woodhouse, unable to escape a world where everyone she knows seems to be plotting some undisclosed malignant fate for her and her unborn child. Set in a backdrop of swinging 60s New York, mundane apartment life and modern medicine, the viewer is Rosemary's only ally in the possibility that something could be terribly wrong until the final, hideous conclusion.
What have you done to him, you maniac?
Similarly, what could be wrong with Stepford? Cleaner community life and baking.
But here's one homemaker who has everything under perfect control.
Good schools and manicured gardens. Yet here, Joanna Eberhard feels something isn't quite right. Off-kilter interactions between residents, an unsettling apathy. And what is with that men's association? Yet here, as with the modernism of 60s Manhattan, the Stepford Wives, also penned by Ira Levin, tells the story of the same paranoia, the cults, and the same insidious betrayal. Adapted for the screen from Levin's book by William Goldman, whose previous successes included Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Papillon, and directed by Seance on a Wet Afternoon's Brian Forbes. The Stepford Wives tells the story of Joanna, who makes the escape from the city to the town of Stepford, Connecticut, with her husband and their children. Initially, all seems innocuous enough. Neighbour Carol, played by Britt Nanette Newman, brings casserole while husband Walter is quickly invited to join the men's association. The kids are settling in at school. Joanna, though, isn't so convinced.
What do you think you'll miss most about New York?
Noise.
People ask a lot of questions here. They seem more interested in Joanna than she is of them, sometimes way too interested, most intriguingly from local artists and linguistic experts.
Oh, you know, I'm really into speech work, words.
Thank goodness for the arrival of Paula Prentice as Bobby.
Hi!
And honestly, one of the strongest and most endearing female characters in modern cinema history. Bobby pulls no punches.
Not to mention that creepy men's association.
What do you think they do up there?
Watch dirty movies and reminisce about the good old days.
As two of the few women in Stepford who aren't thoroughly preoccupied with baking, cleaning and generally doting on their husbands, the two form an instant bond. The off-screen chemistry between the girls translates in the most engaging way to film, Ross and Prentice allegedly becoming akin to sisters during the months of filming. Bobby has been in Stepford a little longer than Joanna, and Riley refers to the place as Ajax country, while Joanna becomes increasingly frustrated at her husband's preoccupation with the town and the men's association. With the exception of the bubbly tennis lover, Joanna becomes increasingly frustrated at her husband's preoccupation with the town and the men's association. With the exception of the bubbly, tennis-loving but refreshingly normal Charmaine, the girls are quite literally a fish out of water in an increasingly odd pond. The oddities here are subtle to begin with, almost comical. Neighbour Carol is involved in a minor accident in a supermarket car park and is quickly whisked away, with other residents showing little concern. An attempt by the girls to start up a women's group to discuss anything that might bother or stimulate them starts well, but rapidly descends into a free-for-all about baking and starched collars.
Holy cow.
Then some things are a little darker and a little less easy to dismiss. When Walter returns from his introduction to the Men's Association, Joanna finds him sitting in the dark, drinking, distant and glassy-eyed. He shows little emotion until Joanna tells him she loves him, at which point Walter comes to and absolutely insists on how much he truly does love her. Tennis fanatic Charmaine has ditched the gym wear and having a pool installed for her husband instead. And Carol Van Sant gets a little over-enthusiastic about a dish at a garden party.
I'll just die if I don't get this recipe. I'll just die if I don't get this recipe. I'll just die if I don't get this recipe.
Being whisked away yet again, only to return offering the girls the most extravagant apology for her drinking habit.
If I was forced to apologize every time I got smashed, I'd spend my whole life wandering around saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Then there's Joanna, with a real gift and great passion for photography. Yeah, she loves her family life, but her art is most definitely her sanity. Increasingly so as the mundaneness of Stepford creeps in like a cold fog. She doesn't want to be the woman who let her ambition become a souvenir of something that once was like every other woman in the town. In fact, while presenting her prints to an agency, she surprises herself when questioned what she wants from her work, saying,
Someday someone to look at something and say, hey, that reminds me of an Ingalls.
in spite of her married name being Eberhard. And here is the true horror of the Stepford Wives. It creeps up on you while you're being slight-handed by odd behaviour.
I'll just die if I don't get this recipe.
Comedic interludes.
Oh, you're the master.
And red herrings.
Well, I can say right off the bat that you got water in your water.
I'm not going to end up like one of those pan scrubbers.
Joanna, concerned for her own safety, visits an out-of-town therapist, Dr. Fancher, played by Carol Eve Rosson in a role very similar to her Dr. Lindstrom in The Fury 3 years later. She listens.
I think the men are behind it. All of them in the association. My husband.
She believes that Joanna believes something.
Oh, Jesus. If I'm wrong, I'm insane. And if I'm right, it's worse than if I'm wrong.
In response, Dr. Fancher advises her.
Then you gather up your children and you get the hell away.
There are no jump scares here. Instead, there are real shocks and moments of sickening realization.
Don't tell me what to do, you bastard!
The horror has been there from the start, disguised as light entertainment.
I cut myself, I'm bleeding!
Do you bleed?
How this could be remade by Frank Oz in 2004 as some sort of frothy comedy has to be one of the most poorly judged misfires in Hollywood history. True, the original does play out sometimes like social satire and other times like a breezy 70s sitcom.
Oh, God, are you the best?
While some of the initial reception criticised it as anti-feminist, it's quite obstinately the opposite. The men here are weak, conservative and two-dimensional. Our protagonists, by contrast, are stoic, driven and multifaceted. The term Stepford wife over time has become a jocular metaphor for the most aggressive homemaker, manicured to within an inch of her life. From the original narrative, however, a Stepford wife is something truly awful.
I want my children!
And perhaps the ultimate oppression. I've deliberately left out the final act here. There'll be no spoilers on this channel. If you're new to this movie, I cannot urge you enough to search no further until you've tracked it down and watched it. There's a lot of spoilers out there, even through a quick image search. The reward is huge and will stick with you long after the credits roll, I promise you. I discovered a great insight into the casting, direction choice and reception of the movie in the climate that was 70s USA, and the feminist or anti-feminist confusion along with it here on YouTube, which helped in a really big way towards my research, so I'll pop the link down below for that. Thank you, Cinema Cities. And please consider liking and subscribing to our channel Scouse of Horror. There's loads more content on the way.
And if I'm right, it's worse than if I'm wrong.